In this video, we're going to look at how to build out our style tiles for a website. And in this case, we need to build two very different style tiles. So the first thing I like to do is kind of think about the imagery that I have and the potential directions I could go in terms of my site. So I'm going to switch over to the Scratchpad here where I have images for articles and products lined up. And as I look at these, I realize that I think I could probably do one variation where I use brighter, more vibrant colors, and another variation where I use some more like earthy colors. So first I'll grab some of the images that convey some more of the vibrant colors. Let's grab this one, and this one, and this one. All right, I'm going to copy those and then come over here to my style tile and paste them. Now they are all currently not the right size to fit in there, and so I'm just going to check each one of their settings to make sure that I can have them fit inside of their frames. In this case, I'm not concerned about the cropping and things like that as much. So oops, in this one I want to fill, and this one will also do fill. Okay. All right, so now I'm just going to bring them into the spaces that I have for images here. And anytime you want two things to align perfectly, like this shape and this shape right here, you can hold shift to select the second shape after you have the first one selected. And then there are these alignment options up here. So I can align to the left edge, so you can see they snapped to the same left edge. And whichever direction you choose, it's going to go with whichever of the shapes is the furthest in that direction. So it aligned to this gray shape since it was the furthest over to the left. So now if I say align to the top, they're both going to align to the top of the gray one. Okay, good. So now I have my image in the right place, and I'm just going to now resize it. Thankfully, Figma automatically kind of repositions the image in that space, and it looks nice. So next, let's do the same thing for this guy, and then drag him up into the same dimension. And we're not going for absolute precision at this point. When we present this to a client, we'd want to make sure it's nice and tight and cleaned up, but good enough for now. All right, as I look over these images, I think I could go with something like a hot fuchsia pink or Fandango type color. So let's see if I can do that. So in this, the way that these style tiles are set up is that we have these swatches at the top. And in order to choose a spectrum of colors, you can just hold Command or Control and then click in the large tile in the middle there. And then whatever color we select, it's going to show us tints and shades because these are just semi-transparent black and white boxes that allow us to kind of get a sense of that. So I want to choose a color that's kind of in the middle of the spectrum so that I get options on both ends, even if the one in the middle may not be the one that I plan to actually use in my site, which may be more relevant in my earthy one that I'm going to record on the other side. All right, so let's use this to sort of sample some options from within the image. Notice that when I use this eyedropper, I can see a large enlargement of the space I'm hovering over in the upper right, and a better sense of what color I might be choosing. So I'm going to start with something in that kind of angle of things there, and you know what? I think that one might be all right. As I look, it's harmonious across the board, in that there's some of that here and even some in here. It's not exactly in there, but we don't need it to be in every image. We need to just ensure that it's generally harmonious. Okay, so that looks good. Now actually, I think I might push that more a little bit more in the blue direction and darken it a little bit more. Yeah, that looks good. All right, with this next one, I think what I might do is go for something that would contrast this, and so I might go for more of the orange angle. So rather than sampling, I'm going to just choose, I'm going to kind of put my colors in a space where I might be able to see what I like there. Okay, I think I want to make it more vibrant. Okay, so there's plenty of contrast between the two, and yet I think we have two harmonious options there. Now for this one, I think I like it generally, but I think I want to push it a little more towards green, just a hair, and then make sure it's nice and bright and vibrant to go with kind of the blues that are there in those images. Okay. Now last of all, let's choose a gray color. So these three colors, these will be colors we use for headings and maybe if we do any decorative shapes or anything like that. This I'm going to try to reserve generally for hyperlinks, so that that's an easily distinguishable piece or color throughout the site. Whenever we see that blue, we can expect to be able to click on it as a hyperlink. For the body copy, though, we want to choose typically a dark color, a gray color, a neutral color, but we do want to avoid solid black. Solid black is sort of a beginner's mistake when you use solid black, in that it's just sort of overdone. So if you use solid black, you want to have a good reason to do so. So I'm going to try to choose a neutral tone, but I'm going to lighten it a good bit to the order of these so that what I actually do is give myself more variations down here. See, before they were pretty flat and we didn't see much variation between them. And then I might even go a twinge towards warming it up a little bit along the lines of what that primary color is. So if I pull the hue into something in that the realm of that primary color, you can see it's warmed that up a bit. The further over I push, the more we get into the actual pink tone. But if we just stay over here, we'll have a neutral gray with just a twinge of that nice warm color in it. Okay, and then these other ones are optional, but what I might do for at least one of these is grab a green from in that branch up in here, just so that we have perhaps a success color. When we do interactive design, we often think about colors conveying functionality or purposes within the site, not just necessarily just brand colors. So it can be nice to have a color that you can use for a success color, and that makes me think that I actually want to push this one a little bit more away from the red, and more even further into that sort of fuchsia fandango angle. That will make it contrast even more from the orange as well. Okay. So now I might use this last swatch to actually grab a red highlight. Maybe I'll desaturate it a little bit so that can be my danger color. And I want to go right over here onto the red side, maybe a little red orange. Okay, so these are way more colors than we will typically use in an interface. We'll probably stay with these two colors, the accent and the body, but it's nice to have these other colors proposed to our customer or client so that they're not surprised if we use them for different things in the interface. All right, so we've chosen our colors, we've chosen the imagery. Next up, we need to shop for some fonts to use. Now, for the purposes of this course, we're going to be using the Google Fonts library, since there's a very nice web service available for using these fonts in our websites. But we need to switch over and take a look at what we can find over there, and we'll walk through how to get those fonts available in Figma as well. So the first, we want to think about what kind of a look and feel we're going for. So for this really more vibrant color set, I think some really hip, contemporary looking fonts will be good. So I was thinking about something like this Jost font for headings and things like that. I could see doing some really neat things with all caps for that one. So I'm going to download this font family. And that's now downloaded. And then I think for the body copy, I want to do something like a really light slab serif, something like this Roboto slab. That which we can find in lots of different weights, and I'll probably use one of these really light weights. Okay, so we'll download that family as well. Now on a Mac, you can open up Fontbook. I'm sure there's a similar utility for installing fonts on a PC, and then all you need to do is find those files that downloaded. I have them in a folder over here. So we're going to open up Roboto and Jost. And then we just get those folders and then drag them over here to install them. Now, I actually have them installed already. So once we've dragged them in here, they should install, and then you're good to go. If you had to install the fonts like that, then you may also need to restart Figma. But once you have restarted Figma after installing the fonts, you should now find those fonts are available over here You can start typing in the name of the font, or you can use the drop down. Once again, please make sure that you're using fonts that are available on the Google Fonts library so that you can use these in your website easily. If you do not use a Google font, you may have trouble later in your project. So make sure that you get a Google font. Okay, so what I did, I skipped right over it, didn't tell you why I did it. I selected my headings and I applied that Jost typeface here. I'm also going to do that up here on the brand. So this is going to be sort of my heading font, and in fact what I want to do is make it, let's try semi-bold, I like that. And then let's make it all caps, and I'm going to use the software features to enforce that all caps rather than forcing it by typing in the all caps myself. That way I can use normal sentence casing. I can even use CSS to force this all caps, just like I did with the software here. And then if we change it later, we don't have to go retype all of our letters, which we would have to do if we had manually entered the letters in all caps. Okay, and then I think I'm also going to increase the kerning here, or the letter spacing, to just kind of space those letters out. And I should actually put in the name of my site, Remote Life. Okay, and then I will probably use my primary color here. And that's looking nice. Okay, so for the next one, for these other headings, let me first get my body copy font applied as well. And I want to apply that on all three of these. So I just held Shift and clicked on the other shapes there. And we're going to go and use Roboto Slab. Not just Roboto, but Roboto Slab. And I think I might go one click smaller, but make sure that I have a line height of 20, and then let's do space after of 10. So that space out, so line height is governing the space between the lines inside of a paragraph like this. But this little setting here is super handy for paragraphs and things like that. It's called space between, and that's what will govern the space that you get when you hit a hard return after a new line. So just demonstrating the idea, some of you may be in the habit of doing a double hard return between lines. Okay, what we can do in design software is use one hard return, that's just pressing with the return key, and then use space like settings like these to govern, or this one here, to govern how much space I have between those paragraphs. So it's a nice way to gain more control over the space. So you should fine-tune this based on your own leading settings and font size. What you're looking for is to not have too much space where you feel like you have a totally different section of your content, but no space either. You definitely want to have some space there. And in web design, it is much more of a convention to use space between blocks than to use indentation like what you might in printed materials. So space between blocks is the way we're going to go here. And I'm going to try to keep it at multiples of 10 for simplicity in this site. That also enforces the multiple of 10 that I have on the baseline here as well. So I like 10. It's just enough space so I can tell there is a break there, but not so much that it feels like it's a whole being forced away too far. So 10 is what I'm going to use. Okay, now on these list items, oh, and I actually also on all three of these want to use a lighter weight. So I'm going to select them all again. And let's go to thin. I think that's a little too light. Light. So I think actually in the website it went regular, light, extra light, and then thin was the thinnest one. So I think light is probably going to be the best option here. Now for these list items, first of all I want to pull them up closer so that they are 10 away. So notice that when we break out of this block and we want to create that 10 pixel space below, all we need to do is make sure that we have them 10 pixels separate, and that will be identical to having 10 pixels between the block. Okay, so what I'm doing is I have an element selected, then I'm holding the Option or Alt key and hovering over another element, and Figma is telling me the distance between those two things. So I can go to another element, or I can even go out to the canvas itself, and it tells me how far we are away from those edges. Okay, so I just nudged it up so that it was 10 away from the element before it, and I'm happy with that spacing. However, I think that the space between these is too much space. So I'm going to reduce this to 5, and I think that looks okay. Again, the bullet is going to help by creating some extra space, or creating an identifier of the spacing there. But 5 space between also sets things up nicely. One more thing I want to think about while I'm here on the list items is the way we're going to do indentation. So this kind of indentation is not normal, where we have the bullet and then the next line wraps underneath the bullet. It's more normal for that line to push over so that it's in line with that where the first letter started. So sadly, to do that, we're actually going to have to do a little bit of a hack. Not many web design softwares get this right yet. I don't know if softwares is a word, but we'll go with it for now. So here's what I usually do to create this. I'm going to hold Alt and click and drag to create a duplicate of this text box. You can see it's all the same text. And then in this one, I'm going to go out and pull everything out except for those bullets. So that all we have left is the bullets in this text box. Okay, and then I'm going to switch to this setting, which means that the width of the box will be automatically based on how wide the content inside of it is. Okay, so I basically have a bullets only box now. So I'm going to therefore pull the bullets out of this box. So this one has only the text. Now I can independently move these around to create the normal kind of space, and something like this where you indent a certain amount from the edge and then center the bullets, if not maybe pull the bullets a little closer. Let's see, they're like 15 points. We're not going to have a lot of control over this particular aspect in CSS, but we do want to simulate the correct alignment in here. Now you'll notice that this bullet down here is not in the correct place that it should be. So to simulate that, what I'm going to do is click in here and basically create a pretend line here. Now, so basically an extra line. Now, notice that if I use a hard return, that's just pressing the return key, it goes down too far. It's because of that space after setting that we have. I want to keep that the same though, so instead of a hard return, I'm going to make use of a soft return. A soft return is when you, instead of just pressing return, you press shift return, and then what you actually get then is a new line that's still inside of the same block. Let me simulate the idea over here. In this paragraph here, if I use a hold shift and press return, that is a soft return, and you can see the difference in the spacing between that and a hard return. So in the first two lines, you can see that we're getting our normal block, and then here I pressed a hard return where we're getting the extra block, and that's even more pronounced if I increase that space after, where you can see the soft return allowed me to keep these two close together while forcing the other apart. All that to say, the soft return is what allows us to basically simulate this blank line here. And now we can see that we have the bullets more appropriately formatted. So just undoing that setting, and now you know a little bit about hard returns and soft returns. So we're looking at the spacing between the blocks because we don't want to just convey the sizes, but we also do want to think about the spacing that we have. Okay, so this is just showing me hyperlink styles. So I'm going to pull that up closer so that it's at the normal spot, and I'll align all these once I get everything else. Actually, let me just drag it up so that it's in the proximity so we don't lose track of it. Okay, so now we've got our body copy settings, we've got our spacing. Last thing we need is to just get these colors set up. So let me just make sure that I'm using my hyperlink color. And then on my list and body, I want to use one of those variations of that light, or of that gray. I may not go with the darkest one, but let's go with the next one back from the darkest one. And it's a subtle thing. It'll feel like it's black without being true black, and that's kind of what we're after here. Okay, so for these, now I want to provide enough contrast, and bearing in mind that we have this style going on our overall header, I think I'm happy with the size contrast, but I think I will beef up the weight a little bit. Let me try a medium weight. Yeah, I like that. And then I think I'll do this one in all caps with a little bit of letter spacing as well here. And so for this level, let's go down in size another click or two, and then let's use our primary color. All right, so this is like a subtle way of reinforcing the brand by having both the color and that all caps with a little bit of letter spacing. It's not a perfect duplicate. Obviously, it's smaller. It's not as heavy, but it's a way to nod and kind of create a bit of unity around the site. Now for these two middle layers, I'm going to go with the medium weight as well. Let's see, and let's go for that secondary color. Okay. I'm liking the way this is going. Last of all, I just want to think about the spacing between each of these levels, and ideally want to kind of lock it into those multiples of 10s so that I have an even simulation here. So first of all, I will typically have more space after a big heading to push it away from other elements. So let's go for 30 on that one, and then let's make, oops, goofed that up. Okay. And then let's do these at least 20 away from the H2 here. Okay, so you can see I have 30 and 20, and then this one should be, let's see, I think I like the 20. It's just 1 pixel off right now. Yeah, so that spacing overall looks good to me. Okay, you know what, let me just push it up 10 and see if I like that. I think I could do that. So part of what we're looking at is we want to make sure that we have this amount of separation between, you know, the kind of the top of this one to anything before it. So that space should diminish a little bit as we go down in our hierarchical levels. Okay. All right. Next, let's just sync up these headings over here so that we are nice and tidy. As you do that, you can hold Shift to keep it aligned kind of straight up and down. But the little guides that it's giving you, pay close attention to what it's doing, in that you can see it's drawing an imaginary line out for us to help us align this with other shapes. And so what we're looking for is for when the baseline of these two things is perfectly aligned. So look for the little red X being on a line that is consistent to the baseline across the whole shape. And that'll help these two feel like they're sitting in sort of the same plane in space. Okay, that one, I'm not sure I got that one right. There we go. All right, so we're just tightening things up after having honed. Okay, very good. I'm happy with how that's looking. It's feeling like a cohesive set overall. Let's just get a little bit started on this one to give you a sense of where we would want to go in terms of variation. So we were going to pull over some more earthy colors. So I'm going to look around here for some of the things that convey a little bit more of that earthiness. So first of all, these headphones are dark. That's okay. And then let's grab this, actually that one. And then this desktop. And then I think I'll grab that grass picture there. Oops. And we're going over to the style tiles where we're going to paste this in. And we want to again check their settings so that we want this one to fit. And this one can fill, that's fine. And then this one, fill is fine there as well. Okay, once again, we're going to get these aligned. Okay, now we can look at these and kind of imagine what we might do. And I think that I could go for a green as one of my primary colors. So let's try to start by sampling something from in here. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get much beneficial inside of there, so I'm going to lighten it a good bit, knowing that I may indeed choose one of the darker tones. And let's desaturate it as well. So desaturating is pulling towards the gray, and saturating is pulling towards the full brilliancy there. All right, I'm happy with that one. Let's now go in here and use this one to grab, I don't know, more like a desaturated orange, to get some of those sort of brown tones. So more yellow, so I'm going to match like what's in there. Liking that. Again, I want to see the ability to grab variations that kind of match that wood tone that's down there. Again, with hyperlinks, it's always safe to go with blues there. I think I'm happy with that blue actually. That seems to go pretty well with those. Same level of intensity. What we're looking for is that we're, maybe desaturating a little bit since these are a little desaturated. All right, with the body color, I definitely want to pull in more of the orange tone so that it's a warmer gray. And then let's go up into the midtones there. Okay, and then I think I'll leave it at that for this one and delete these other two color palettes. But we could certainly go and choose at least an alert color here. Actually, let's do that. Let's not be lazy. Let's go ahead and grab, because we already have a good success color. I'm happy with that one. And so for this one, maybe I'll grab actually, start with that, but desaturate that red tone a good bit. Okay, so there's another good color set. What would remain would be to go through and choose fonts so that we have another variety of font options. And again, in this one, since we're going for more earth tones, I might choose a little bit more of a classic font, maybe even go a little bit editorial with it. There's all kinds of options we could do to play around with that. But the key is we want to show our customers two different directions. And through showing those two different directions, we can then get a sense of where they want to hone in. And usually it will side one way or the other, but you'd be surprised sometimes what aspects of one they might like that you want to try to find a middle ground on as you pull together for the final. Okay, that should do us for here, and I'll look forward to seeing what you can do through your own style tiles.